Another race and another Hamilton and Verstappen clash that this time ended up in a big crash with Max Verstappen in the barriers and a ton of controversy being thrown around in every direction. There is plenty to talk about, but before I do jump in, I just wanted to say that some of you might know that I was actually at Silverstone for this weekend, and I just wanted to say a massive thank you to every single one of you who came up to me and said hi and even asked for pictures. I mean, it was honestly just surreal to be able to talk to fans and subscribers about the channel, and obviously my channel is all about my opinions on big topics within F1, and it was also really great to have like little debates with you guys as well. So yeah, once again, a massive thank you to every single last one of you. It really does mean a lot to me. But yes, and now let's jump in to this video. There is no doubt that this incident was the defining moment of the entire race, and arguably, it's been the most defining moment of the entire championship fight so far. When it comes to the incident, I think it's important to put things into a little bit more context, because after the first ever sprint race in Formula 1 in which Max jumped Lewis at the start, and then they had another great lap 1 battle, Lewis was never able to really make any impressions on Max and really put him under pressure in terms of trying to overtake. Even though he got close towards the end, Max is driving at the moment at such a high level. He seems to be just granite under pressure, not making any mistakes, and the performance gap between the two cars in Silverstone was so small that Hamilton just did not have enough of an advantage to really be able to trouble Max. Now, the reason why this is important in my opinion is because going into the race, Lewis knew that his best chance of winning the race was going to be on lap 1, and looking back, he knew that he had to be ultra aggressive and ultra assertive to make sure that Max didn't just run him wide and then run away with the race. All of that, of course, leads us onto the incident. Battling all the way throughout the first lap, the two of them were side by side heading down the old pit straight, heading into Copse, and then as they both turned into the corner with the full 100 kilograms of race fuel in their cars, Lewis tagged the back of Max's car as Max was trying to go around the outside and overtake him, which sent him into a big crash. Lewis subsequently was given a 10-second penalty and used that race pace that he had all weekend long to not only make up the time deficit, but to also overtake Charles Leclerc with only a few laps to go and to win the British Grand Prix in very controversial fashion, and to fully capitalize on Max's unfortunate result, and now bringing the championship gap between the two of them to just 8 points heading into the next race in Hungary. When it comes to the crash, it was a scary one, there is no doubt about it. Silverstone is one of the fastest Grand Prix tracks on the calendar, and although it is one of the biggest reasons why we love it, that just adds to the danger of getting into a high-speed collision. It was reported that Max experienced 51 Gs in the crash, which is similar to what Romain Grosjean went through in his crash in Bahrain. And to be honest, the TV cameras did not even do it enough justice, but here is a video from a channel called Stephen Bentley, who filmed it from just behind the barrier as it was happening, and it really gives you a better sense of just how big and how scary that crash really was. So yes, that was a very big one, but thankfully Max was okay, and although he was pretty shaken up and obviously had to go to the hospital to get checked out, what's quite interesting is that looking at the reaction after the race from the fans, the drivers, as well as some of the presenters and analysts, there is no one single opinion and there is no one cut and dry way of looking at it. Different people have different opinions on whether it was just a racing incident, whether the 10-second penalty was justified, and whether it should have been more or less. And I think it just shows how complex the crash was, and that's racing. Different people see the same crash and the same incident in different ways. As far as my initial feelings from the grandstand watching it live and seeing it on a screen hundreds of meters away, I thought that it was a penalty, and after watching and rewatching all of the different angles, I think 10 seconds was actually a very fair penalty given how close they were going into the corner and how much contact there actually was. Of course, the crash is more on Lewis because he was the one trying to dive down the inside, and with him understeering and missing the apex, I mean, that plays a huge part in the crash as Max tried to overtake him around the outside. That is why, with the majority of the blame, I totally understand the penalty, and I think 10 seconds It was the right decision given the kind of penalties that the stewards have been dishing out for wheel-to-wheel incidents over the past few years. But I strongly believe that, just like in most wheel-to-wheel crashes, both of the drivers have a part to play in the crash, and from Max's perspective, although he was ahead the entire time, Lewis has the right to be there, and he was right next to Max even going into the corner, and when Max saw him late and had to do a double maneuver turning in, I think at that point, with Lewis backing off and braking for the corner, I don't think Max needed to be so aggressive in cutting him off. If he knows Lewis is there on his inside and braking at such a tight angle into the corner, I think Max should have just given Lewis more space, and almost as a safety blanket, really knowing that if he did go wide himself, there was plenty of runoff at the end of Copse, and as he was ahead the entire time, he wouldn't need to give the position back if he did run over the white line and go wide. In the end, my biggest takeaway, and I've tried to keep the same energy throughout the entire season, like when Max ran Lewis wide in Imola and then when Lewis ran Max wide in Portimao, both of these drivers are so desperate and so hungry to win, and both of them are driving at such a high level that they've reached the point where they can barely even back out of moves to give the other one more space. To me, their racing throughout 2021 has been so on the edge and tiptoeing that line between fair and hard racing, and also heading towards giving the other driver no space at all and being way overly aggressive. To me, it was just a combination of both drivers not wanting to give the other any space at all, and also the speed and layout of the corner as well, which made the accident happen and made it as bad as it was. Now, although I do think that the 10-second penalty was fair and deserved, I don't agree with some people that have said that it should have been even more. We want fair treatment, and that's why when you look at the likes of Lando and Checo in Austria or Russell during the sprint quali, the penalty was fair, and we don't want to deter drivers from racing wheel-to-wheel very hard, especially when there is already a massive lack of racing as it is. If I'm being honest in this video, and I'm always honest with my opinions, I think most of the reaction is coming from the fact that Hamilton won the race despite the 10-second penalty. But that isn't in the steward's control, and you can't predict where a penalized driver is going to finish. The fact is, Lewis Hamilton had the car, he had the pace all weekend long, and although the crash was not him at his absolute best, that doesn't take away from the fact that he was absolutely brilliant in the race in saving his tyres and then making up a 13-second gap to Leclerc after the pit stop for the race win, which his teammate was not able to do on fresh tyres. It's a weird dynamic in which a driver deserves a penalty but is still fast enough to win the race, and then actually does. But also what I think has to be mentioned is that Red Bull were hurt by the fact that Sergio Perez did not do a good enough job and was not there to pick up the pieces. If he had qualified in the top 3 or maybe even in 4th, he could have had every chance to capitalize like Leclerc did from the crash and possibly have enough race pace in the car to hold off a charging Hamilton. In summary, to me this crash has been a long time coming, and I think it sets an interesting dynamic going forward because something tells me that neither of these two drivers are going to look at this incident and think to themselves, do you know what, I think I'll back out next time and give him even more space. No. Max and Lewis are cold-blooded assassins when it comes to wheel-to-wheel combat, but with that always comes the added risk for an overtake to go wrong when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. That's what I think Lewis and Max are, and that's what I think we saw. To me, the gloves are now fully off between these two and between Toto Wolff and Christian Horner because both of them had plenty to say, and I think in particular Christian Horner and Helmut Marko did go a little bit overboard with some of the things that they said, and also in insinuating that Hamilton in some way meant to crash into Max on purpose.
You know, that he shouldn't be making maneuvers like that. It's unacceptable. You know, he's put a driver, thank goodness the biggest result for us today is that he was uninjured. You know, he's having to go to hospital for precautionary checks after, you know, a 51G accident. So, yeah, I hope Lewis is very happy with himself.
To me, this incident is not similar in any way to the Prost and Senna incidents at Suzuka, or the Schumacher and Villeneuve incidents either, and it just stirs up more drama where there is none. With the tension at an all-time high, with the points now closing in the championship, and now with Mercedes having a bit more momentum, in a weird way, the British Grand Prix weekend is exactly what Formula 1 needed. This is not the last time we'll see Lewis and Max come together, but we need to respect that sometimes big moves just don't come off, and we just need to appreciate that both of these two are driving on the very edge at all times. I wouldn't be surprised to see these two lock horns again, and I wouldn't be surprised if both of them took themselves off at some point later in the season. So there you have it. I hope you did enjoy this video. Now don't forget to let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to have to say about this one, because this is going to be a controversial one, no doubt. And if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop a like and smash that subscribe button to support the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.